remembering that my role in Greener Kirkcaldy is slightly different from a workplace role, because I'm not a member of staff and therefore not exposed, if you like, to the day-to-day 9 to 5 activities of the organization. And so being a trustee and a board member is a different kettle of fish from actually being a member of staff. But I think by and large, the voluntary sector in Scotland and the charitable sector is very good at regulating itself in accordance with best practice. Identifying what that best practice is, putting it into effect, monitoring that it is done, having a proper complaints and whistleblowing procedure and so forth. Now, that's not to say that every charity and every voluntary organization is perfect, or even that Greener Kirkcaldy is necessarily always perfect, because people perceive things differently. My perception of the interaction between Suzy and Lauren, for example, may be nothing like Lauren's perception of that interaction, because I don't see the reality and I don't feel it from her perspective. But I do think Greener Kirkcaldy tries hard to be as good an employer as possible and to have in place remedies for when that doesn't work.
I think that's true, Christine, for what it's worth. That's the same feeling I have.
That's good. I think the voluntary, like working in the voluntary sector, and it's really the first time I've really felt at home in a kind of sector in terms of working there. And I think I would very much echo what Christine said there. There's something about values, and because charities and organisations in the third sector are very much based on the organisation's values, then I think that's often at the fore. And I think staff tend to work there because they support the values of the organisation, and that often means that they tend to also support other, what I would think of as other positive values, and equalities and respect for other people often kind of comes along with that approach and the kind of people that would work in the sector.
Being a small organisation helps too. Very much. I mean, the council had 20,000 employees, and it can be very difficult to deal with significant issues, some buried somewhere in building services or the bottom of social work, where the hierarchy runs to 10 people before you get to anyone who can make a decision. So small organizations, where it doesn't work, they're hell. But where it does work, they're much easier.
Mm-hmm. I suppose in the bigger organisations, it's about just trying to create that culture where you can speak up if you do face it.
Yeah, I haven't worked in any other sector to this, but I have heard stories from other people about other sectors. And I think exactly what Suzy was saying at the beginning when you asked about if she's been trying to get more women in senior roles, and that it's not something that she's thought about. Whereas I've heard about, you hear from other sectors where they're purposefully recruiting women so that there are a certain number of women in the workplace, which is it's not a good start, is it? Purposefully recruiting women to be in roles because you feel like, or because you're told that you have to have a certain number. Whereas I think, like you said at the beginning, we recruit people because they're right for the job, and I think that's a really good start. And exactly what you were saying at the beginning as well, about training and development. I started out as a volunteer 6 years ago, and I've been through so much training and development. I feel like my job role's completely changed, but in a good way, and it's been really good for me. So I think that's really, and that's probably true of a lot of this sector as well.
Yeah, there is one other example, Stephen, has just occurred to me, where I don't know whether it's discrimination, but it's extremely subtle. The Scottish Government recruitment is, in order to be fair, is entirely anonymized. So you apply and your name and gender, nothing like that appears on the thing. But certainly for roles on non-departmental public bodies like the national organizations, Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Homes, whatever, you're invited to describe your achievements from your perspective. What difference did you make? Say what your role was in achieving this milestone. And that's very difficult for women who have a much bigger tendency to work as a collegiate group. And so the benefits of an achievement will be felt as the benefits of the whole group of people. The fact that you were a member of that group and it might have been your original idea. You are much more likely to give praise to the group for that achievement than to say, well, I led this team and we achieved whatever it was. And we have tried over and over and over many years to persuade Scottish Government that this is unfair to women employees, to women applicants. But they won't have it. So
yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do if you've been working in the caring, nurturing, collegiate sector.